Greetings. I am Belinda Scott Pitts, proud president of the Suffolk Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a national award-winning chapter for our physical and mental health programming, a two-time regional award winner for our arts and letters programming, and a regional award winner for our educational development programming. We are located in the South Atlantic region where we know we are better together in sisterhood, leadership, and service. We are back, and we are thrilled to have you join us tonight for our Money Matters Monday, an empowering conversation designed to help you build financial confidence, security, and generational wealth. To our Facebook Live audience and those on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Get ready for an evening filled with knowledge, engagement, and the sisterhood spirit that drives everything we do. Whether you are joining us live or watching us on replay, thank you very much for tuning into our webinar and for continuing to support our efforts. Drop a comment to let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and share this live stream so others can benefit too. Coming to lead you through tonight's program is the chair of our Economic Development Committee, Krista Gaddis. So let's get ready to talk money and let's make it matter.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We have with us today from First Genesis LLC of Norfolk, Virginia, an independent African-American financial planning firm, Danica Royster and Kendra Bullock. Danica is a wealth consultant and junior partner at First Genesis LLC. She graduated from Old Dominion University in 2012 with a bachelor's degree in business management. Danica is well versed in financial services, focusing on retirement planning, wealth accumulation strategies, educational funding, and asset protection through insurance. Danica is passionate about enhancing financial literacy and being a resource for the African American community. She dedicates her practice to supporting Black professional women seeking financial empowerment. Her approach honors our heritage, respects our culture, and empowers individuals, families, and communities to reach their financial potential. Appointed to Norfolk City Council on January 13th, 2021, and elected on November 2nd, 2021, Danica served until December 31st, 2024. She has been a member of the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission and co-chaired the Mayor's Advisory Committee for the St. Paul's area and Mayor's Commission on Social and Economic Opportunity, Equity and Economic Opportunity. Kendra Bullock is a seasoned financial professional and client services advisor at First Genesis of Virginia, where she leverages her expertise in financial planning to benefit her clients. Originally from Memphis, Tennessee, Kendra's journey in finance began with a bachelor's degree in finance from Middle Tennessee State University. With over 10 years of experience in the financial services industry, Kendra works closely with millennials and pre-retirees to help them reach their financial goals. Driven by a passion for continuous learning and professional growth, Kendra holds a master's degree in taxation and financial planning from Widener University. Her academic achievements have provided her with a comprehensive understanding of financial principles and strategies, enabling her to offer valuable insights and guidance to her clients. Everyone, let's welcome Danica and Kendra for our presentation this evening. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us. We are so excited to be here and to share some information with you all. As mentioned earlier, we are with First Genesis of Virginia, and we are located in Norfolk, Virginia. So I'll pass it over to Danica to get us started.
Good evening, ladies. It's such a pleasure to be back with the Suffolk Alumni Chapter as we bring some more financial knowledge. I said back again because we've had the honor of partnering with these amazing women of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated over the past several years. And every year we bring another topic. And we know that our time is short tonight, but we want to be very intentional. So our Monday Matter subject is going to be focused on estate planning, creating, protecting, and securing a legacy. And as you can see, it's Wakanda inspired. So, not sure how many of you all have been paying attention to some of the other headlines, because I know oftentimes, especially in these day and times, there's different types of headlines that are out, but tonight we're going to focus on this particular one. So a couple years ago, there was an article published that addresses Black Americans are losing out on a $68 trillion wealth transfer. Estate planning can change that. Not sure how many of you all are in the know that right now we're in the midst of the greatest wealth transfer this country has ever seen. And it's set to transpire, and we're in the midst of it now, but over the next 2 decades. By 2045, it's actually estimated that $68 trillion will be transferred from the baby boomer generation down to their heirs. So this is exciting news. But one of the first questions I have heard when I gave this presentation is, am I in the number? Well, that is all going to be contingent on you and your family. But particular to this article, what they were talking about is the fact that in the midst of this great wealth transfer, which would have a great impact on the conversations we've been having regarding the disparity and the racial wealth gap, a lot of us, our houses are not in order. So you might have heard, get your spiritual house in order. Tonight, we're going to be talking about why you need to get your financial house in order as well. Because essentially what we have found and what we have seen, either maybe you had someone in your family, maybe it's a church member, maybe it's somebody who's in another chapter and you're like, Danica, that don't relate to us. We don't know what they do, in other cities, but in Suffolk, we handle our business. But regardless, I'm sure many of you all remember the headlines about Aretha Franklin, not the outfit changes that she had in the funeral that took place over 3 days, but what happened after the funeral regarding where's the will, what's going on. Or maybe a story that you might have remembered what happened with Michael Jackson, where also that family came out in the news, not, oh my goodness, that was just such a lovely service, but the mess that ensued following the funeral. So essentially what we want to talk about tonight is getting into what are the things that we can be preparing ourselves for. Because oftentimes when people hear estate planning, you think of something like for a celebrity or someone who is extremely wealthy. When honestly, you need to be planning your estate, even if it's just like, hey, I have money just sitting in my bank account. So those are the things that we're going to be discussing, because there are some financial implications if you do not get your house in order. And essentially, if those things aren't done properly, you'll find yourself disinheriting your heirs and being a part of this article, which is pointing out the persons who are going to be missing out on the transfer.
Yeah, so the first thing that we want to cover is actually the current estate tax law. And this is something that was enacted in 2017, and it's called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And essentially, without having to read this paragraph, it's saying if you have an estate over $22.4 million, you do not have to pay any estate taxes. I know you're like, Kendra, I don't have $22.4 million. Why is this relevant to me? Well, it's very relevant. Like Danica said, you don't have to be wealthy. So whatever you would like to pass on, no, as long as it's under $22.4 million, you don't have to pay taxes on that. And one thing to note that's really important is that this law, they call it a sunset, but it's potentially going to end at the end of this year. So what does that mean? that means that the current levels are going to decrease. So if you're married, that is going to go from 22.4 million down to $10.98 million. And if you're single, the level is 11.2 million right now. But if this law changes, then it will be reduced down to 5.49 million. So you may not have had that 22.4 million, but there are some of us that might have an estate that's worth in the millions. So you may not be affected by that 22.4, but you could potentially be affected by that basically being cut in half down to that 10.98. So and you say, Kendra, I'm still not close to that number, then that's okay. That means that you still are able to transfer assets over tax-free. And you can go ahead to the next slide, Danica. And the next slide is going to show some changes that are also, that will impact us, the everyday type of folks. Like we're not millionaires, but there will be changes that we'll see if this changes. Now, I will say, and we see a lot of uncertainty going on right now, and this is one of the things that we're uncertain about. We do not know if this is going to end at the end of 2025. It'll be more concrete once we hit the fourth quarter of the year. But one of the changes that you're going to see is that standard deduction will be reduced. So back in 2017, it was $6,350. But now it is for last year, it was $14,600. So that's going to be reduced back to that 2017 number if you're filing as a single person. And for those that are married, in 2017, that deduction was $12,700. And last year, it went up to $29,200. So again, if that change goes into effect at the end of the year, it's going to be reduced down to that 12,700 number. Also, your personal exemptions will be reinstated, and those child tax credits will decrease, and then the tax rates will increase. So there are going to be a lot of changes for everybody. And on top of that, when we talk about Social Security and Medicare, and we see people losing their jobs, we are potentially to see a big financial adjustment being made for all of us. So it's important you don't have to know these verbatim, these laws, but, be aware that there are some big changes coming up for everybody. You can go to the next slide. So first you want to ask yourself, how do we build wealth? What do we put into an estate? And we see it in different ways. It's the money that we make from our jobs, the money that we're putting away in our investment accounts. It's the house we live in. It's the money that we're saving up that we're either getting from a parent or another family member, friend, and the money that we plan to give to someone else. So you don't have to just look at there as it one way to save and build wealth. There are plenty of different avenues to building that wealth so that you can transfer your belongings. I like to say it's the money and it's stuff too, right? Cars, homes, jewelry. Those are different ways that you can have wealth and pass it along to someone else. So you don't want to have a one-dimensional view of what you can pass on to somebody else. There are a multitude of ways of doing that. You can go to the next slide. So one of the biggest questions that we get is, should I get a will or should I get a trust? And they operate a little bit differently. So first you want to say, what is the purpose of a will? So this is something that specifies, and it's a legal document that specifies the assets and properties that should be distributed after your death. But versus a trust, you are able to, independent on the type of trust, and I'll get into that a little bit later, you can manage and overlook the distributions while you're alive. And you can also dictate what happens from the grave. We like to say, with a particular trust, this person is speaking from the grave. So this sounds very similar, but with a trust, depending on the type of trust, you are able to make changes and dictate what happens. With the will, it's after you pass. So one of the biggest things that we talk about is something called probate court. And you want to avoid probate. So when you pass away, let's say you have an account, you have a bank account that just has your name on it. And just to keep it simple, you have $100 in that account. When you pass away, where does that money go? Is it going to sit at the bank? No. Once the bank is notified that you're passed away, there's no beneficiary on this account. So it is going to go to probate court. And depending on how complex your situation is, probate can last from a few months all the way through some years. So depending on, and because if you have an estate that's complex, that means your heirs, your beneficiaries, the people that you love, who you want to benefit from your estate, it may take a while. Also, with a probate, well, let me back up. With the will, when it goes to probate, that's public information. So that means anybody can pop up and say, you know what? Danica was my cousin, and I know she left me something, and I'm trying to take a piece of that. That may not have been Danica's wishes, but if the court has to review it and to make sure that it does apply, and so it's not going to stop it. So John, Dick, and Harry to pop up and try to contest your will, and we did see that with Aretha Franklin, right? They want to contest the will that they found in that couch because the one that they had and the one that was in the couch was different, but even with, if there's one will, if someone comes out and tries to contest it, then that could slow down the process. Now, what makes a trust different from the will is that this is private. So it's going to avoid probate. So you don't have to worry about, good question. You don't have to worry about it's having to go through probate. It will just smoothly transfer over to your heirs and beneficiaries. Now, what someone just mentioned about creditors, now that comes into effect with the types of trust. And so there are two types that are mostly known. It's the revocable and an irrevocable trust. And you can probably, just based off the names, kind of get a gist of what each one does. So with the revocable, this is when you're alive, you are able to make changes. Danica also sometimes tells a story about how there was a client that would change her beneficiaries based on the grandchildren that visited her the most. So if she had a trust and she wanted to make changes while she was alive based on who came to visit her, she could do that. Now, with the irrevocable, once you put that stuff in that trust and you dictate what you want to do, there is no changing it. So what does that mean as far as creditors? With the revocable trust, that means they have less protections with the revocable trust, which means there's a greater chance of creditors coming after your estate. Versus the irrevocable trust, then it is a part of your estate is separate from you. So you have its own entity. I guess that's the best way to explain it. So that means creditors have a lesser chance of coming and trying to take anything out of that estate. So there's more protections with that irrevocable trust, but you cannot make any changes. You can go to the next slide.
So the next slide is mine, but I did want to touch on something, just so you know how these are established. A recommendation from us is going to be working with a professional person, because oftentimes people ask, oh, well, is this something I can draw up? But as you just heard, Kendra mentioned a scenario where, people will write something down on a piece of paper, put it in their favorite Bible near their favorite verse, and then they've gone on to glory, and their children and grandchildren are looking for Big Mama's Bible, trying to remember what her favorite verse was, and trying to figure out in which closet is it under, is in her favorite hat box from her favorite Easter Sunday dress. And we don't have time for any of that. Essentially, once again, getting your house in order also means doing things decent and in order, and working with a professional person. And another thing that we talk about with persons as well as, there's a difference between just, having a trust. So oftentimes these are things that also need to be funded and you need to be listing and naming the assets as well. But that's also another presentation for another day. So let's get into some estate planning strategies, because oftentimes, you know, we went through the $68 trillion transfer, the documents. Now, okay, what are some things that I can do when it comes to estate planning to almost alleviate, reduce, or even in some cases, eliminate some of the things that might come up for me? So we're going to go over some of the top 3 things: purchasing life insurance, charitable giving, and reducing estate tax liability. So life insurance. Oh gosh, Danica, here you go again, talking to us about life insurance. Well, if you recall from some other presentations, yes, life insurance is the only tax-free benefit, death benefit that you can leave to someone where Uncle Sam cannot put his hands on it. So that means if you have a policy for $1 million, whomever you've named as your beneficiaries, they are going to get that money tax-free. Now, what are some of the benefits of utilizing life insurance? Number 1, it bypasses the probate process. It is a legal document. So whom you name, you know, Danica, Kendra, etc., Danica gets 5%, Kendra gets 95%. That is what the document states. That is why we share with people it is important that you are having an annual review with your financial advisor, your planner, or even your insurance agent, because things change. Life happens. I have some clients, for example, when they started working with me in their 20s, they named their parents as the beneficiaries on their policies. They're now married with children and their whole dynamic has changed. I have clients who within the last 5 years have been divorced. I know some of you all would probably be rolling in your grave if something happened and your ex whomever became 100% beneficiary to the things that you have listed. But remember, this is a legal document. So whoever is the new, they're going to have a hard time in court trying to contest what this other legal document says. Not to say it's impossible, but it's going to be very difficult to do, and it's avoidable. Number 2, proceeds can be used to pay estate taxes and other debts. When we talk about the various stages of life and planning in those life, what your insurance needs might have been when you were younger and then you had children at home and had a mortgage are going to be a lot different as you've gotten older. Now, some of your thoughts might start focusing to, I've done my financial plan. I met with Kendra and Danica, and they showed me there's going to be some tax issues upon my passing. How can I remedy that? Utilizing a life insurance policy to go ahead and take care of the tax portion of your estate versus disinheriting your children or reducing your inheritance to your children because you're once again, even in death, paying Uncle Sam. Point number 3, can ensure a fair distribution of assets among heirs. Goes back to the example Kendra gave. It was one of my father's clients, and she would change the percentage based off of not only what grandkids came and visited her, but also were you being a decent person. She was very conservative, so she had her own thoughts as it relates to going to school, getting a degree, having a good job, etc. But also, you needed to see her more than just on Mother's Day, Easter, Christmas, and Thanksgiving. And based on where you fell, at her time of going on to glory, that's what it was. Leave a legacy by naming a charity as a beneficiary. I'm going to touch on this one in a second. And then the last one, proceeds passed to heirs, income tax free. And we kind of reviewed that already because that's one of the benefits of life insurance in general. So charitable giving. So I know that we're in the 757 area, and oftentimes there's a lot of Spartans on the call. There might be some pirates on the call, some monarchs on the call, some Trojans on the call, some Vikings on the call. You all get the gist. You love your school, right? And then there's also some people who like, oh, I love my church. Oh, let me tell you, we got one of the baddest choirs in the 757. Oh, but let me tell you, my preacher, he preaches down, girl, on Sunday. And that's all great. And that's wonderful. One of the best gifts and things that we've had the opportunity to do seminars on is charitable giving. So for people who love their colleges and universities, their church, or even charitable organizations that mean a lot to them, they think about, maybe I should leave something to them. And this is a great conversation to have, because essentially, you know, every once in a while, there'll be a story that comes out about someone who left a big donation to their university. And you might think, well, what's some of the benefits of that? Incorporating charitable giving into your estate plan can be a powerful way to leave a legacy and support causes you care about. And it can also provide potential tax benefits, reducing the tax burden on your estate and also your heirs. So it's something to consider. I'm going to give you an example of what and how that can even look. So this is a case scenario from a case that I actually did a couple years ago, where a donor woman, she was in her 70s, she was 70 years old. She purchased life insurance policy to donate to a charity. The charity was actually to a university that she went to. So at the age of 70, she purchased $100,000 no lapse guaranteed life insurance policy. So it was a permanent policy. The annual premium ran about $3,000 and the death benefit was $100,000. After 20 years, so by the time she was 90, the total premiums that she paid into that policy were $60,000, and the death benefit that was paid to the charity was $100,000. So your question might be like, okay, Danica, what are you getting at here? Well, a scenario that we sometimes hear people say is, I'll just save the money and give it away. Well, one of the things that you have to weigh in on is, number one, the acquired amount that you would like to get to. You don't know your time frame on when you're going to be called on to glory and how many years you have. Only the Lord knows that. So if you're going to be intentional about the charitable donation you're going to make, sometimes it's good to look into what are the assets or the things that I have right at my ready. Another thing is, upon her passing, this didn't even take away from her estate. This was something separate that she had in place. And so I'm sure that university, matter of fact, I know because I was the one who helped facilitate the check and letting them know that, yes, this is a real donation made by Sister So-and-so, and they were very, very appreciative of it. They're like, this is wonderful for us. How many of us have seen articles about maybe some of our sister HBCUs, either local or in other parts of the country, that are having financial issues? One of the things, other than what's currently happening, is about donations. Alumni being in a position to give back. I, at my age right now, I'll tell you now, I'm 35, I don't have $100,000 to give away. However, I can plan to do something like that, and I can look and see, okay, what premiums fit within my budget. So that's another thing that comes out like, okay, Danica, well, you said that annual premium was like $3,000. Yes. So that means one of the things is, yes, you're going to have to be able to qualify to be insured. And some of the things they take into account is your age, your health, as well as what type of policy you have. So when you're looking into doing estate planning, whether it's going to be in the scenario of covering taxes or in the scenario of I want to leave a charitable donation, these are all factors that need to be considered. I tell people there's like 6 different types of insurance policies out there. So you can't just go and say, oh, I'm just going to do this thing because I saw it on TikTok, Instagram University, and Facebook Institute. You are more worthy of seeking more knowledge and working with a professional person to make sure what you have is how it's supposed to work and it does what needs to be done.
All right, so I know another question would be, how am I going to transfer these funds? Who is it going to? Where I'm going to put it? When I'm going to do it? And what's that impact on my taxes? What's my tax liability going to be? So these are the questions that you want to think about, especially, earlier I talked about you can transfer stuff, but now we're going to be talking about the money piece and the impact that can have on your estate and to your heirs and beneficiaries. So make sure that when you are thinking through what you want to pass on, these are the questions that you want to be asking yourself. So you can go ahead and the next slide. Thank you. And so there are actually different rules for different folks. So if you are married and you plan on transferring over your funds to a spouse, if that's going to be your primary beneficiary, there are going to be certain rules for that. So the biggest thing is that if your spouse passes away or you pass away, your spouse has the opportunity to either inherit your IRA or they can roll it into their current IRA and treat it as their own. Now, with that, it's going to affect your RMD. So, what is an RMD? It stands for Required Minimum Distribution. And right now, once you hit the age of 73, if you have a retirement account, you have to take a minimum distribution. And you're like, why do you have to do that? Well, it's the IRS. Especially if you haven't been taking those funds, they are waiting and knocking at the door like, it's time to give up some of that money. So that's something that you have to do. And if you do not, there is a penalty. It used to be 50%, but now it's 25% if you do not take that RMD. Now, if you have an inherited IRA, the spouse has to start taking that RMD based off of their life expectancy. Even if they're not 73, if they got the money from you and you were 73, you have to start taking your RMD, and that penalty will apply to them as well. So you have to be cognizant of and aware of that age. So I will say this year it's 73. In a couple of years, the age has changed. For those of us that are aware of the rules, it was 70 and a half a few years ago. Now they've bumped it back to 73, and eventually it will be bumped back to 75. So if you are close to that age, take a deep breath. You still have a couple of years, and it's going to change as time goes on. Now, if you do not need the funds, then you still have to take that RMD. Sorry. I know if you are in the position where you don't need the money, you still have to take that RMD. The next thing about, and what's special about transferring to your spouse is that you have an unlimited marital deduction. So that means that you can transfer any amount to your spouse without triggering any estate taxes. So that means the estate and gift law tax, it will allow an individual to transfer unlimited amount of assets to their spouse. Now, the benefit of transferring is that the funds will grow tax deferred. Now, because it's growing tax deferred, when it's time for you to take those distributions out of that retirement account, you do have to take taxes on those distributions. Now, I'll repeat what I said. You can transfer unlimited amount, but when it's time to take those distributions, you do have to pay taxes on those distributions because they've been growing tax-free. Next slide. Now, if you don't have a spouse and you want your heir beneficiary, it's your child, niece, family, friend. We see, beneficiaries aren't necessarily children, spouses all the time. Now, if it is a non-spouse, they have to open an inherited IRA. They do not have the ability to roll over into their own. Now, there is this rule for non-spouses. They have to take the funds within a 10-year period. So if I were to pass in 2025, my beneficiary, because it's usually my nieces, I don't have any kids, I don't have a spouse, they would have to take that money within a 10-year period. So by 2035, they have to take the entire amount of that account. Now, you can take a lump sum upfront, or you can stretch it out the 10 years. What I have seen in the past is that people take that lump sum and forget that there's a tax liability associated with that. So just say if you are someone, you just inherited that $100,000 and you're in the 22% tax bracket. Guess what? You're going to be paying $22,000 for tax time. So Some people like to split it up. If you don't mind taking, that tax hit up front, that's up to you. If you split it out 10 years, that's your choice, but you have to do it in that 10 years. And I already talked about the taxes. So yeah, that money is going to be subject to ordinary tax. Next slide.
Okay. So what can derail your estate plan? So one of the conversations we like to have with persons, because even when it comes to estate planning, there's a misconception, and I'll hear it from people, oh, that's something that I have to do when I'm old. And I'm like, hold on, what y'all trying to say? I'm 35 and I'm already starting to work on mine. But it's like, oh, no, you know what I mean, Danica, like, and this is a younger person talking to me. Like, once I figured out everything, and I tell people there is no time like the present. How many of you all wait till you feel better to go to the doctor? How many of you all wait till hopefully all the lights turn off on my dashboard before you take it to the mechanic? So why are you waiting to get yourself together before you meet with a financial professional or even an estate planning attorney to get your stuff in order? And often what we see are actual scenarios that derail persons from A, being able to, number one, even build an estate, and B, be in a position to actually transfer that money over as well. So we're going to venture into that. Long-term disability. For those who are unfamiliar, disability income insurance is the policy that would pay you your salary, a percentage of your salary, I should say, in the event that you are unable to work due to illness, injury, or surgery. One of the largest misconceptions when someone hears disability is they think wheelchair. Not true at all. If you look at this chart here, it actually gives a printout, or I should say a perspective with a graph that shows all the various ways and all the various types of claims that insurance companies find people coming in and filing. So musculoskeletal system, connective tissue, 23%, mental and nervous disorder, 18%, cancer, 9%, nervous system, 22%. And as you see, injuries are only 7%. So you might be thinking, Danica, what in the world does disability income insurance have to even do with estate planning? Well, you asked about something that could derail. So tell me, if you lost your ability to produce an income, which is your largest asset, is to be able to go to work every day, you not only are trying to figure out how you're going to pay bills, but what does that income pay bills for? For some people, it's that mortgage. So if I don't have income to pay my mortgage, what happens to my house that I said I was going to be leaving for my heirs? It doesn't exist anymore. If I'm unable to work and there's no income coming in, can I utilize one of the retirement saving opportunities that Kendra mentioned earlier? It won't matter about RMDs because I won't have anything to even put aside. So if you can't even think about paying your bills, saving money is on the back thought of your mind, more than likely the last thing you're thinking about is leaving a legacy. So this is a conversation I have with persons who are in their earning years, that this is one of the things that could happen. We actually recently got a call within the last week of someone who was 60, in their 60s, not 65, and they weren't close to retirement at all, who recently suffered a stroke. And now she's in a position that she is trying to figure out life now. That's not a good position to be in. Why delay today, which you can go ahead and intentionally take care of today, on the hope of there will be a tomorrow? No, nothing is guaranteed. So essentially, I always tell people you get life insurance in the event of death, car insurance if you get an accident, health insurance, you got to go to the doctor, homeowners insurance, there's a fire. So why would you not protect your most valuable asset, which is your ability to produce an income every day? And then for some people, the other question I have is, if checks aren't coming in, how are you going to pay your bills? And those are the same behaviors that are happening in our community that is derailing, not only because you can't talk about transferring wealth if you don't have any. So even derailing the idea of growing it. So here's a case scenario, just to put things into perspective. This is a client. She's age 42, makes about $98,000 a year. We saw that she had a big void in her long-term disability. So she has an annual benefit that in the event she has a long-term disability event that would pay $61,320 a year. The benefit period is to age 65, and her policy is costing her about $3,791.59 a month. She has a long-term disability event that occurred at age 45, so just 3 years after she took the policy out. At the 3-year mark, she had paid $11,374.77. As you note here, I said the premiums per the policy are actually waived while she's on claim. So she's not paying any premiums while she's on claim. She is on claim till age 65, so for 20 years. The total benefit amount received between age 45 to 65 was $1.2 million. Can you imagine what her life would be like had this money not been coming into her household? Can you think about how this would have impacted her ability to pay her bills, pay her mortgage, put money away, and essentially continue even though her plans were derailed due to a life event? However, once again, she worked with a planner who were able to look into, like, let me see where my pitfalls are and let me make sure I take care of these things ahead of time. As well as the fact for some that ask, yes, she had the benefits through her job, but more than likely, a lot of people don't necessarily take a look at those benefits. I have never seen an employer that covers 100% of your salary. I see a percentage between 50, and I think the most I've ever seen is 70%. And here's a little tidbit. If your employer pays the premium for you, it's actually taxed. You're not taking that whole 70% home. You're not even taking that home 65% home. You're taking home less than that. So, scenario number 2, long-term care, which is often also confused with long-term disability. More than half of Americans are turning 65 today will need some type of long-term care services and support. The average cost of those future services and support are $120,900 in today's dollars. As many of you all know, or maybe you don't know, they're saying about every day, about 10,000 baby boomers turn age 65. So that's a lot of people. So when you think about long-term care, not to be confused with long-term disability, this is the policy or the plan that's in place in the event that you're unable to take care of yourself. 70% of adults age 65 and older will require long-term care at some point. 42%, Medicaid only covers 42% of Americans' long-term care costs. Americans spend about $475.1 billion annually on long-term care. And the average length of stay in long-term care is 3.2 years. Just over 20% of residents will require care for 5 years or longer. And this data is actually changing because we're finding that more people are living longer, even living longer with diagnoses such as Alzheimer's and even dementia. So once again, you might be asking, Danica, what does long-term care have to do with my estate planning? I'll tell you, an unplanned, unfinanced long-term care event will wipe out an estate. How, you might ask? Well, in the state of Virginia, currently, if you wanted to stay at home, and this is 2023 numbers, in-home care for homemaker services are running about $6,483 a month. Home health aid, $5,720. Adult daycare, $1,452. An assisted living facility, $6,050. Nursing home, semi-private room, $9,247. And a private room, $10,190. What does this mean to me, Danica, in my estate plan? Well, I'm happy you asked. For some of us, a bulk of your estate, particularly the funds, might be tied into your TSP, your 401k, 403b, pension money, and those are your biggest and your largest financial assets. Can you imagine having a long-term care event perhaps at 70 and all of a sudden having to, because you might not like sharing no room with nobody, but getting a private room every month that costs $10,000, and how quickly your $200,000 in your TSP will quickly be drained. And if I've spent all the money in my retirement assets, started to pull equity out of my house, how in the world can I even be in a position to have any type of conversation about leaving anything to anybody? And this is something that we're seeing actively. This is a conversation that I'm telling you I'm having with clients who are my age, and they're asking me, how do I have a conversation with my parents without them thinking that I'm trying to kill them, get rid of them, or just want to put them, in a corner in a room? And I tell them, well, it's an uncomfortable, but it's a necessary conversation. Because essentially what we have found is some persons, they have alternative long-term care plans that they don't share with people. Can y'all believe that? There's people who have made plans for their kids who live in California that they gonna take care of me. I don't care about that girl he lived with. Oh, that's not y'all. That's another chapter. I'm sorry. I'm always just talking. Or I'm gonna move in with them. Do them student loans they got, that mortgage, and them 2 grandbabies that you love so much know all that? No. But I had to do it, so and nobody left me anything, so I'm gonna do the same thing. Oh, I forgot. I'm talking to the Suffolk alumni. That must be another group. I'm sorry. I got y'all confused with some other folks. But can you believe that those are conversations people are having or not having at all? So then when mom and daddy have an event, because, life happens, people are scrambling and trying to figure out. And if you've been a caretaker or are one, you understand that it's more than just the financial impact of becoming a caretaker. It's also the emotional, mental, and spiritual impact. So when we talk about getting your house in order, these are one of the financial pieces that, although it's uncomfortable, we need to discuss, because this is one of the quickest ways to disinherit your heirs and to become part of the statistics of the racial wealth gap. They say sometimes it takes up to 3 generations to build wealth within our community and only 1 generation to destroy the whole thing. And one of the biggest things that we're seeing is a lack and a neglect of long-term care and estate planning. So you're like, all right, Danica, you done drained me. You done took me on an emotional roller coaster. I'm sad. I'm over here texting my sisters and brothers. We need to get it together. We ain't finna be another soul food example. Now, what are my options, right? So long-term care has changed. Before they used to just have those standalone use it or lose it policies where all I have is just regular long-term care. Something happens to me, is there? Nothing happened to me. Oh, well, thanks for playing. Nothing's in place. So you see that over here to the left, the use it or lose it policy. Those normally come with lower premiums, but those premiums sometimes cannot be fixed. So you'll see them actually grow. And there's no death benefit. Like I said, use it or lose it. Now we're seeing a whole bunch of different options. Long-term care, life insurance, hybrids, no lose policies even. I saw one, or we've been working on a case with an existing client right now, and we told her there's 3 options with this policy. You have a long-term care event, the policy is in place, and you used it. You live a long life and go home to glory at 120 years old. Great. Guess what? You didn't need it. So now there's a life insurance arm on this where now you've once again added to your heirs' inheritance via a tax-free method. Number 3, you might say, 15 years in, I don't need this anymore. I don't want it. you can walk away from the policy with the amount of money that you've already invested into it. So it's a no-lose policy. No premium increases. You can surrender. There's a return of premium. And also the death benefit grows as the policy is in place. We also have seen long-term care annuity hybrids. For those who might be saying, hey, I actually have assets, whether it's a retirement plan or I have money in the bank, so non-qualified money, I want to look at that as my options. Best thing you can do is look into your options and find the plan that's going to not only be best for you in your financial situation, but be able to fit the context of what your needs actually are.
And so as we round out this presentation, we want to talk about building your team. And so there are different professionals that can assist you with setting up your estate. As we talked about earlier, wills and trusts, we do not write those up. You have to reach out to an estate attorney. We are able to manage the assets inside of a trust. And what me and Danica are able to do, we can be the financial planner. We can also be the insurance professional. We take time to review with people their employee benefits, insurance, and all that to make sure that, we can identify those gaps to make sure that you are not one of those people that are, we build it up and then you are losing it in that one generation. We don't want to keep starting each generation starting at zero. We want to be able to start somewhere. And lastly, I do have a master's in taxation, but I do not do taxes. So it is important to reach out to a CPA or to a firm that does handle taxes so you can make sure that piece is in order, because one thing we don't want to do is owe Uncle Sam, because they will not leave you alone and you do not want to end up with some silver bracelets. And so we can go to the next slide. I know that we do have some questions in the chat. We try to cover some of those, and I'll pull it up.
Before we get to the questions, one of the things I want to say is, me and Kendra, we do these presentations probably about maybe 2 or 3 a month. And everyone is like, good information. This is great. One of the biggest disconnects we're finding in our community is we have a lot of literacy that people absorb, but very little implementation. And I told someone, if we're all getting the same financial literacy, if we're all buttoned up, if I have it through my job, if we're all good, why do the statistics say that we're ever declining as a race of people? Why are there people who we all still know who've either worked at our jobs, related to us, we know from church, we know from life, who are still finding themselves in financial peril? And I have to question, is it a lack of knowledge, a lack of desire to implement it, or a lack of prioritizing it as it being important? And sometimes it can be a combination of 3. We recognize that life happens all the time. Trust me, I get it. We work with people's money every single day, so we know life is consistently happening. However, I do believe that as people, we have a choice to decide, am I going to continue to allow life to happen to me now that I have been informed? Because you can no longer plead ignorance once you've been made knowledgeable. And because of that, and because of the desire we have to support those in our community, recognizing that Black advisors, Black financial advisors, not financial enthusiasts, not financial educators, but people who we went to school, we got degrees, we took tests for, make up less than 5% of the industry. Black women actually make up less than 3%. So our call is not only to share information, but to be a source of implementation. And because of that desire, one of the things that we do is every time we do one of these webinars or workshops, we offer a 45-minute to an hour complimentary consultation at no charge for you, your spouse, your children, whomever. Because essentially we never want anyone to feel like, oh, that's probably only for rich people, or I can't afford it. or they wouldn't want to talk to anyone like me, or I don't have X amount of money in the bank. Not true. So that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure I shared is everyone who is in attendance, anyone who's registered, you drop your email address, we will be in contact with you and offering you that no obligation session at no cost. Because essentially what we're seeing, what we see weekly, unfortunately, we probably get a couple calls a month as it relates to someone who has passed and a relative trying to get assistance, or someone has had a stroke, or someone has something had happened in life. And now I'm prioritizing this because now it's in front of me. But then every once in a while, we get a proactive call because someone else has either observed it, lived through it, and said, the buck stops here. I'm breaking this generational curse. I'm breaking this idea of procrastination. I'm breaking this idea of we're not going to talk about it, because essentially our silence is so silently disinheriting our heirs and just repeating this wealth gap situation that we're continuously talking about. I tell people I don't even want to talk about the racial wealth gap anymore. It took 400 years to get there. It's going to take 400 years to fix it. And based off the next 4 years we got with that man, it's going to be a rocky road. So let's go ahead and get our own house in order and take care of the things that we have control over. So that was my 2 cents. But it was necessary because essentially it's important for us to care about each other, care about our family, and care about our communities. And the way that we do that is not just through attending. It's what's going to be my next step. Do I declare today that I'm a cycle breaker and I'm going to do different because I know different now? Or I'm going to live with my head in the sand and when life happens, life happened. But you can never say that no one offered, the knowledge wasn't there, or that these amazing women of the Suffolk Alumni Chapter did not only try to educate you, but give you a path to be financially flourishing in your own personal life.
Wow, Danica. I'm sitting here with excitement thinking, okay, what's next? But I'm next. So
Yes, I'm next.
this information has been wonderful and very timely, and we certainly appreciate you all coming and blessing us with this information. Some of the questions that were in the chat were already covered, and others go a little further down into the weeds. But one thing Danica and Kendra have given us are the financial advisors that we need to get in our corner. They are financial advisors. They mentioned having an estate lawyer, having an accountant, and insurance provider. So they are 2 out of the 4 that we need to get our estates in order. So we just really thank you all for coming and bringing us this information. Can we show their information again really quickly to see how we can get in contact with you? Okay. Definitely additional information. There we go. You can get in touch with them at www.firstgenesisva.com. They are on Facebook. There's a phone number there. So please reach out, add them to your arsenal to get your estate in order. And just on a personal note, my appointment is this week. So
Yes.
so definitely definitely get your finances and estate in order. So again, we thank you, Kendra and Danica, for blessing us with this timely information. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
for having
always
us.
partnering. We always appreciate your partnership with us at Suffolk Alumni Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta. So thank you so much. Okay, so as we continue, what are the Suffolk Deltas up to? We have several events coming up that we wanted to tell you all about. One of them that is going on right now, you have a few days left, is our food bank, our food challenge. We're doing a virtual challenge attempting to raise $5,000 for the food bank with a goal of 5,000. You can use the QR code there to donate to this challenge. And we also have Talk About It Tuesday. That is actually tomorrow. We're talking about diversity in children's books and why that is important with Miss Paula Banks. Also, Deltas are getting fit and fabulous on Friday this week with instructor Mr. Michael Parham. So please come on out to Creekside Elementary School and join us there. Get your boots on the ground for that event. Another event is our Black History Extravaganza. You don't want to miss that. Tune in on Thursday for our SAC Has Got Talent. So make sure you tune in on a live stream with our Black History Extravaganza. Good Health Wins. We have a QR code there where you can get information on vaccines. It's flu season, RSV. Just hit that QR code to get some information on updating your vaccines. And our Denim and Pearls Rodeo Edition party. You don't want to wait on this because I have a strong feeling that this event is going to sell out. Our Denim and Pearls Rodeo Edition party is going to be on June 21st. Tickets are $75. You can get information and tickets at the QR code there. This is going to be a time to have a good time with the Suffolk Alumni Chapter, the Denim and Pearls Rodeo Edition party. Make sure you check out our social media pages. We also have reviews or playbacks of our financial fortitude workshops from 2024. So make sure you check those out. And as always, continue to follow us on our social media platforms at SACDST 1964. And thank you all for joining us for this program. Again, if you want to reach out to Danica and Kendra, we can provide you with information for that if you didn't take it down. So definitely reach out and we'll see you next time.